Recently, there's been more information coming out about GDPR than you can shake a stick at. These are the European Union's General Data Protection Rules. This presentation is less about the GDPR and more about how to perform an audit of your Infusionsoft campaigns to bring you closer to compliance. Infusionsoft already has a GDPR helper campaign that you can download for free. In my opinion, that campaign is little more than a tool for creating tasks against your contacts. This campaign seeks to do far more, to automate more of the process, and to leave an audit trail in case you ever need it. So let's dive in. This is the GDPR audit campaign at a glance. Like so many powerful campaigns, it's a lot to take in all at once, so we're going to break it down so that it's easier to understand and also so that you can either build it yourself or configure it to your liking by starting with the one that I have to offer. The campaign starts with your decision on who you want to send through the audit. By applying the tag GDPR Audit Start, contacts will begin the process. If you know your EU contacts via some other means, such as the Contact Locator feature of the Plus This add-on, then go ahead and only apply it to those contacts. Otherwise, it's fine to apply the tag to all of your contacts. We're then going to go down one of 4 branches based on other tags and conditions. If you already have your contacts tagged in a way that indicates whether they're double opted in, then we're going to take this pathway. If you're looking for a way to automate tagging those who confirm their email, there's a list hygiene campaign that can do that for you using email automation links, but that's a different webinar. For contacts who already made a purchase, we're going to take this pathway. Every Infusionsoft application will have its own way of making this decision, so you'll have to edit the rules to be valid for your customers. For contacts that have already been through the audit successfully, we short-circuit to the end to avoid doing it a second time. The last pathway is up top, where we send the GDPR notices to our contacts who did not get sent down any of the other pathways. We're going to start our deep dive in the double opt-in pathway. If the contact already confirmed their email, we're going to make an inference that the contact has a legitimate interest as our lawful basis for contacting them. Technically, I believe the GDPR says you need confirmed interest for each type of email, such as blog posts, events, product offerings, etc. Note that this campaign is not legal advice. It's a framework to make compliance with your own policies easier. You're welcome to make this more granular for your own particular needs. Out of the box, a double opt-in merely confirms that we have at least some legitimate interest. Application of the legitimate interest tag gets us out of the sequence. But if the tag was already on the contact, then reapplying it won't fire the goal. So a minute later, we'll recognize that the contact is already compliant and move on. Now let's look at what we do once the legitimate interest tag is recognized for the first time. Inside the legitimate interest sequence, we apply a note to the contact to indicate how and when this contact passed our GDPR audit. The other thing to note here is that anytime a contact is tagged as having confirmed their email, they will also enter the audit campaign so that you don't have to re-execute your audit on a regular basis. Personally, I'm a big fan of set and forget campaigns that just work. Next, we're going to take a look at the pathway a contact takes if they've already made a purchase. You'll have to edit this rule before publishing the campaign. Everybody has their own way of tagging purchases, so out of the box, it's set to fire when a logical impossibility exists. That's never. You're going to want to fire this when the contact does not already have the performance of a contract tag, and they have other tags you know to mean that you have a contract in place. Note that in addition to a fresh audit, any time that a new purchase is made, your contact will enter this campaign as well. You may want to edit this so that only specific purchases grant you the performance of a contract status. So whether via the audit or a new purchase, contacts end up here where we apply the tag that performance of a contract is what gives us permission to contact that person. If your contractual reason only exists for a fixed period of time, you'll have to extend this part of the campaign, but as it is, it at least gives you a central place to manage your own process. Application of the performance of a contract tag gets us out of the sequence. and into the GDPR performance of a contract sequence, where we make note about our reason for contacting the person. Next, we'll look at what happens with people when we actually have to email them about our GDPR policies. It starts simply enough. We note that the audit is in process. In here, we do a little bit of cleanup. We know that the audit is already underway, so we remove the start trigger. Also, in the event that they were previously marked as unresponsive, we're going to get rid of that too. The internal documentation also includes adding a note that the audit was started. Next, let's drill into the actual email that we send out, noting that even though this campaign only sends one, you can send multiple notices if you wish. This part of the campaign, the email, is almost verbatim to what Infusionsoft used in their free helper campaign. The actions take place when the contact clicks on the button, which will take them to a web form. Regardless of what they do on the web form, if they clicked, then we at least know that they saw our update. We're going to add the informed consent tag, knowing that this may be revoked based on what action they take on the web form. You can customize this form to look any way that you want to match your brand, as well as adding or removing fields. You can also increase the level of granularity over what emails your contacts wants to receive. This part of the form comes directly from something I saw via a MonkeyPod video. Each radio button has tags associated with it, and you can respond to those tags however it's appropriate in your own Infusionsoft application. The checkbox at the bottom is where the contacts would revoke their permission to use their data. That's the one control in this email that's automatically handled for you in the GDPR campaign. In truth, we would prefer that people who want to become anonymous or revoke our access to their data, we want them to use this rather than the built-in options for opting out during an unsubscribe. That's because the latter sends you an email that you have to track and act upon, whereas this option manages the process more smoothly, as we'll see next. The checkbox applies a removal request tag, which we'll watch for. Then we make note of the request and create a task to execute. You'll either update the task to make note of what to do based on your policies, or just delete the contacts in this sequence, though the latter is unlikely. We end by deleting the tag that requested that the contact be removed. However, if we did delete the contact, then this step is probably moot. Now, remember that simply clicking through to the form would add the informed consent tag. So we'll add a note that we have informed consent, and we know that the tag already exists since that's what got us here. But now, what happens to people who do not respond to your GDPR notices? I've received more GDPR notices than I can count, and I've deleted almost all of them. We're going to wait some period of time, you determine how long, then we're going to add a note about being unresponsive to the GDPR audit, and apply a matching tag. That GDPR unresponsive tag pulls them out of the delay sequence. And you get to decide what happens to them next. And if they should exit, we've got that covered. We apply a note that we're going to unsubscribe them and apply a tag to exit active campaigns. We're watching for the exit active campaigns tag at the end of the GDPR audit campaign. But note that this tag can actually be applied from anywhere. The recommended practice is to watch for this one tag in all campaigns as a way to introduce a short circuit. It's an Infusionsoft default that if a contact opts out, they won't get email anymore, but they still sit around in your campaigns as virtual corpses, distorting your numbers. The list hygiene campaign watches for those conditions and applies the exit active campaigns tag accordingly, but that campaign is not required for the GDPR audit. The last steps in this campaign are about handling cleanup for people who either opted out or asked to be removed. That means removing their GDPR tags so that if they subscribe again later, we can reapply the tags as appropriate.